Years have carved deep lines into Mara's resolve, each one a reminder of the family fractures she fled long ago. Whispers of betrayal that echo in her quietest moments, pulling her back despite the ache. The city of her youth calls now, not with warmth, but with the weight of unspoken truths waiting to unravel. She grips the armrest as the cab weaves through familiar streets, the skyline blurring into memories she thought buried, until it slows before the old neighborhood where everything began again. The cab pulls up to the curb under a slate-gray sky. The engines rumble, fading into the hum of the childhood city Mara hasn't seen in years. She steps out, suitcase in hand, the air thick with the scent of rain-damp concrete and distant traffic. Her eyes fix on the family home across the street, a squat, brick two-story, with peeling white trim, its front porch sagging like an old man's shoulders. Windows stare back, blank and unblinking. Inside, she knows, the reunion waits, voices murmuring, plates clinking, the weight of unspoken years pressing down. Numbness clings to her like fog. Mara's fingers tighten on the suitcase handle, her breath shallow, as if moving too quickly might shatter the quiet armor she's built. She stands there, a statue in the drizzle, watching shadows shift behind the curtains. Lena's silhouette, Julian's. The house pulls at her, a magnet laced with barbs. A voice cuts through from behind. A producer, mic clipped to his collar, camera bag slung over his shoulder. "Mara, we're set up inside if you're ready. Just a few shots to start. Your arrival. Thoughts on coming back." She turns slowly, the world tilting into focus. The camera. The idea had seemed distant when she agreed over emails, a way to document without diving in. Now it's real, a lens that could capture her fracture or force it wide open. Her pulse quickens, numbness cracking into something sharper, an anxious itch to step forward, to let the light in, even if it burns. Okay, she murmurs, voice flat but edged with resolve. Not yes, not yet fully, but enough to cross the street. The producer nods, falling back as she approaches the door. It creaks open before she knocks. Julian, peering out, his face a map of quiet hesitation. "Hey," he says, stepping aside. No hug, just space. Inside, the living room feels smaller than memory. Faded floral wallpaper, the same sagging couch. On the coffee table sits the family photo album, its leather cover cracked, pages fanned slightly as if someone, Lena, left it open to a page of posed smiles from a decade ago. Mara pauses, hand hovering near it, the glossy faces mocking her numbness. She doesn't touch it. Not yet. The producer gestures to a chair by the window. "Mind if we roll? Just talk about what it's like being here." Her stomach twists. Shield or trap? The camera could frame her pain at arm's length or drag it into the open. She sits, the chair groaning, and nods once. "Let's try." The red light blinks on, and the words hover on her tongue. Truth stirring beneath the silence, already uncoiling. Later that week, after the initial footage had captured her tentative return, Mara sought out the familiar sanctuary of therapy to unpack the resurfacing ache. The office hummed with the low whir of the laptop, its screen casting a pale glow on Mara's face. Dr. Cross sat across from her in the armchair, legs crossed, notepad balanced on her knee like a shield. The room smelled of chamomile tea, gone cold, and the faint leather of bound books lining the walls. Mara hit play, the footage jittering to life. Handheld, verite style from years ago. A family dinner, the table laden with tamales and laughter that didn't reach the edges. There she was, younger Mara, 14 maybe, eyes wide as Lena leaned in, voice sharp. "You're just jealous. Always the baby. Get over it." The words sliced through the chatter. Julian shrinking into his chair. Fork paused mid-air. Mara on screen recoiled, mouth opening for retort. But nothing came. Silence swallowed her. Cut to black. Mara paused the video, her thumb hovering over the spacebar. Isolation coiled in her chest, tight as the locked journal she'd left in her bag. "I thought time would blur it," she murmured, voice raw, barely above the fan's drone. "But it's sharper now, like the tape preserved it all. The betrayal, the way she made me the villain for feeling left out." Dr. Cross leaned forward, her edged lighting throwing shadows across her compassionate eyes. "What do you see in that silence, Mara? Not just then, but now." Mara's gaze dropped to the screen, frozen on Lena's defiant smile. The recording wasn't just pixels. It was evidence, unyielding, a reel of what she'd buried. Guilt had been her default, dissolving into it, blaming her sensitivity, her neediness. But here, replaying, the pain sharpened into something nameable. Favoritism's sting. The older sister's control, twisting admiration into resentment. "It wasn't me," she said, the words emerging like a confession. "She gaslit us all, and I let silence be my armor. But it didn't protect. It just preserved the rot." The therapist nodded, a quiet pause stretching between them. Mara felt the shift, isolation cracking, realization seeping in like light through blinds. Facts solidified. Lena's deflection, Julian's averted eyes, the family's unspoken pact to gloss over fractures. Speaking it aloud edged her toward something public. A conversation beyond this room. Distance from Lena flickered in her mind. Not vengeful, but honest. A boundary drawn in truth. Yet the question lingered, unspoken but heavy. Could she break the silence without shattering herself? The laptop screen blinked, waiting. As the therapy session lingered in her thoughts, Mara turned to the next layer of reckoning, scheduling an interview with Julian to draw out the family's hidden undercurrents. The camera hovers, handheld and unsteady, capturing the dim glow of a single lamp in Julian's cramped apartment. Mara sits across from him, her notebook open but untouched, the recorder's red light blinking like a hesitant heartbeat. Outside, the city hums faintly, but here, the air feels thick, resigned. Another interview. Another layer of family dust she sifts through before tomorrow's dinner. She's tired of these confessions, the way they loop back to the same fractured core, leaving her numb. Julian leans back, his fingers tracing the edge of a small photo frame on the coffee table. It's an old snapshot from their childhood home. The three siblings posed stiffly on the porch steps, Lena in the center, beaming, Mara flanking her with a forced smile. Julian tucked at the edge, half-shadowed. Frost from the window behind it has crept in during last night's chill, veiling the image in a thin, icy film, as if the memory itself refuses to thaw. "I've always been the ghost," Julian says, his voice low, not breaking the quiet, but slicing through it. He doesn't look at the camera, just at that frozen photo. "You and Lena fighting over Mom's attention, or Dad's rare approvals. I'd watch from the stairs, invisible, like if I spoke, I'd shatter something." His words hang, pulling Mara's gaze from her notes. She feels the weight of it settling in her chest. Resignation, the dull ache of knowing this rift was never just hers. She shifts, the chair creaking softly. "Invisible how? You were there, Julian, always watching." Her tone is flat, probing without heat, but inside, thoughts churn. Is this what they've all become? Echoes of each other's silences? He meets her eyes now, finally. Betrayed, Mara. Not by you two directly, but by the way we'd all pretend. Lena pulling strings to look perfect. You retreating into your shell. I'd try to bridge it. Remember that summer at the lake? I suggested we all swim together. Make it normal. But Lena laughed it off. Said I was too sensitive. You just nodded, like it was easier. He pauses, the room stilling, the frost on the photo glinting under the lamp. No silent flashbacks here. His words drag it out, raw and spoken. It fed the silence, made me feel like my pain didn't count. Mara's breath catches. The resignation cracks. Alertness floods in, sharpening her focus. She sees it now, the rift's tendrils reaching further, binding them all in unspoken betrayal. Her own hurt, once solitary, mirrors his. I did that, nodded, because speaking up felt like inviting more hurt. The admission slips out, her voice gaining edge, thoughts racing. If he can name this, can it unlock the rest? Lead them to a truth beyond rivalry? Julian nods, a small thaw in his expression. The space between them, warming, just a fraction. The recorder whirs on, capturing the shift as the frozen photo watches, unmelting. In the wake of Julian's revelations, memories from their childhood began to surface, unbidden, pulling Mara deeper into the past. The camera lingers on the faded wallpaper of the old living room, yellowed like old newsprint, where balloons sag against the ceiling like forgotten dreams. It's Mara's 8th birthday, or so the cake says, in lopsided frosting. But the air hums with the weight of another celebration. Lena's report card triumph, pinned to the fridge, like a medal. Mara sits cross-legged on the shag carpet, her small hands clutching a paper crown from some earlier game, watching as the family orbits Lena. Lena, 12 and already tall, stands at the center, her voice a steady thread weaving the room together. And then, remember, Mom, when I got the A, the teacher said it was like magic. She flips through the family photo album on the coffee table, its leather cover cracked, pages whispering as she points to a snapshot, the 4 of them at the beach last summer. But wait, there's no trace of Mara's sandcastle collapse, the one that buried her toes and made her laugh until she cried. Instead, Lena's finger lands on a posed shot, all smiles aligned, the waves blurred in the background. This is us, perfect, Lena says, her tone light, authoritative, as if editing the frame seals it. Mara leans closer, her crown slipping, but her reflection in the glass table shows a girl already fading at the edges. Dad chuckles, ruffling Lena's hair. Our storyteller, he says, and Mom nods, passing the album like a sacred text. Julian, just a toddler then, babbles from his high chair, ignored, his spoon clattering. Mara opens her mouth. Something about the ice cream spill she cleaned up alone, the one that stained her dress blue. But the words dissolve in the hush. Lena turns the page, skipping the photo of Mara with the broken swing, the one where her knee bled and no one noticed. Next one, the picnic where I found the frog. Lena continues, her eyes bright, claiming the narrative like territory. The room tilts slightly in Mara's memory, the colors muting to sepia, the laughter echoing hollow. She shifts on the carpet, feeling the fibers prick her skin, an outsider in her own frame. The album snaps shut, Lena's hand lingering on the cover, as if locking away the loose ends. Who gets to crop the shadows, to choose which moments stay in focus? The question hangs, unspoken, as the candlelight flickers out on Mara's untouched cake. Returning to the present, Mara revisited the family home for a deeper conversation with Julian. The echoes of the past still vivid in her mind. The camera lingers on the faded wallpaper of the old Torres living room, edges curling like forgotten promises. Mara sits on the edge of the sagging couch, her fingers tracing the seam of a worn photo album pulled from the shelf. Dust motes dance in the slanted afternoon light, filtering through half-drawn blinds. Julian slumps across from her in the armchair, his knees bouncing, a rare fidget from the usually still brother. The air hangs heavy, thick with the unsaid, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest. "I've always been the ghost," Julian says, voice low, eyes fixed on the floor. "Middle kid, right? Lena gets the spotlight. Always has. You at least fought for yours. Me? I just watched." He pauses, swallows hard. Mom and Dad's eyes slid right over me, like I was the buffer between her fire and your storm. Ignored, until I wasn't useful. Mara's grip tightens on the album. She flips it open without looking, pages whispering, like confessions. A family snapshot stares back. Lena, beaming in the center, arms around their parents. Mara off to the side, half smiling. Julian blurred in the background. A shadow at the edge. She turns the page. Nothing. Just a ragged tear where a photo should be. The glue yellowed and empty. Her throat closes. A familiar lock clicking shut. Say nothing. Keep it buried. That's the rule. But Julian's words snag, pulling at the thread. The loneliness in his voice mirrors her own, a ripple from Lena's endless favoritism, the way it drowned them both in silence. Internal storm brews. If she speaks, does she crack open the flood for the camera later, undermine the fragile wall she's built? "I see it now," she murmurs, voice barely above the hum of the old clock. The words escape before she can cage them, raw and tentative. "Lena's shadow, it swallowed us. You more than me. I was too busy running to notice how alone you were." Her eyes meet his, the closed door of her heart creaking ajar. Openness seeps in, vulnerable, like light through a fissure. Julian leans forward, surprise softening his guarded lines. "You get it? Finally?" She nods, the album heavy in her lap. The missing page mocks her. Erased moments, selective forgetting. How to hold his hand through this without toppling her own fragile peace? The question lingers, unanswered, as the room breathes easier. The bridge between them, tentative but real, with insights from Julian fueling her determination. Mara prepared to confront Lena directly, armed with the archival evidence. The laptop screen flickered in the dim living room, casting jagged shadows across the coffee table cluttered with half-empty mugs. Mara sat rigid on the edge of the couch, her fingers hovering over the play button like a reluctant surgeon. Lena lounged opposite, arms crossed, her posture a fortress of casual indifference, until the footage rolled. Grainy video from years ago. A teenage Mara, voice cracking, recounting the stolen necklace, the lies that unraveled trust. On screen, young Lena's face twisted into a smirk. "You're imagining things again." Footage Lena said, her tone syrupy with dismissal. "Why do you always make drama out of nothing?" Mara paused it there, the freeze frame lingering on her younger self's wide-eyed hurt. She reached for the locked journal beside her, its leather cover worn from years of secrecy. With a soft click, she unlocked it, not to read, but to place it open between them, pages splayed like an invitation. "This is what I kept," Mara said quietly, her voice steady, not accusing. "The parts you skipped." Lena shifted, eyes flicking to the journal, then away. "That was ages ago. Kids fight. You're dredging this up now because, what? You need a villain?" Her words came quick, deflecting, but her fingers tightened on her elbows. Mara hit play again. Another clip. Family dinner, Mara protesting the favoritism, and Lena's voice overlaying it, smooth as glass. See, you're just jealous. Always have been. The real Lena leaned forward now, jaw set. I was protecting you from looking petty. That's not gaslighting. It's family. The room thickened with silence after the video ended, the kind that pressed against the walls. Mara closed the journal slowly, the lock snapping shut like a boundary drawn. Lena's gaze met hers for the first time, not defiant, but cracked, guilt seeping through the edges. Fine, Lena muttered, voice low. Maybe I minimized it. But you were so fragile back then. Mara nodded once, the air humming with what wasn't said. The footage looped in her mind, evidence stacking like bricks. But Lena's half-step toward truth felt fragile, teetering. Would it hold or shatter them further? Building on that fragile moment, Mara gathered Lena and Julian for a more intimate reckoning, the weight of the past demanding fuller exposure. The room hung heavy with the scent of cooling tea, shadows pooling in the corners like unspoken regrets. Mara sat across from Lena on the worn couch, the locked journal balanced on her knee, a relic from their shared girlhood, its clasp rusted but unyielding. Julian lingered by the window, arms crossed, his silence a third presence in the dim light. Mara's voice cut the stillness, steady but soft, like rain on glass. You took my story, Lena. That birthday, 8th, remember. You rewrote it all, made me the shadow in our photos. It wasn't just jealousy, it was erasure. You betrayed the trust between us, claiming the family like it was yours to guard. Lena's face was a mask of frost, lips pressed thin, eyes fixed on the floor. She leaned forward, words clipped, controlled. That's not how it happened. I was protecting us. You were always so fragile. The family needed one voice, not chaos. Her fingers twisted the hem of her sweater, knuckles white, holding back the flood. No accusations flew. Mara's tone carried no venom, only the weight of years named at last. But the cold cracked. Lena's breath hitched, a tremor rippling through her shoulders. She reached for the journal, tracing its lock as if it held the key to her own buried words. I thought if I controlled it, the pain wouldn't touch us. But God, Mara, every time I look at those albums, I see what I stole. From you, from all of us. Tears welled, spilling without fanfare, her entitlement fracturing into raw guilt. She didn't sob. It was quieter, a breakthrough in the hush, her body folding inward as the armor slipped. Julian shifted, his nod subtle, a confirmation that echoed in the air, binding their fractures just a fraction closer. Mara felt it then, the strength blooming in her chest. Naming the wound didn't shatter her. It armored her right to draw lines. Lena wiped her face, voice breaking on a partial surrender. I'm sorry, not all of it, but enough to start. The words hung, fragile. Did this confession lighten the family's load? Or did it risk unraveling the fragile peace they'd all pretended at? Mara closed the journal, the click resounding, and glanced toward the door. The dinner loomed, truth now a guest they couldn't uninvite. The tension from that gathering carried into the family dinner that evening, where the stakes demanded a public voicing. The dining room hummed with the low clink of silverware against porcelain, steam rising from the communal paella like a veil over unspoken histories. Mara sat at the long oak table, her fork tracing patterns in the saffron rice. The shared meal a fragile truce under the chandelier's muted glow. Family members, parents, aunts, cousins, leaned in, their faces etched with the familiar strain of gatherings that demanded harmony at any cost. Lena, across from her, speared a prawn with deliberate poise, her smile a polished shield. Mara's pulse thrummed in her ears, a tight coil of tension winding through her chest. The air felt thick, weighted with the old rule: swallow the hurt, preserve the plate. But tonight, the words pressed against her throat, insistent as the spice on her tongue. She set her fork down, the sound sharp in the hush. "Lena," Mara said, her voice steady, eyes locking onto her sister's. "We can't keep pretending. That night, when you told everyone I was the one lying, about Dad's favoritism, about how you twisted it to make me the villain, it broke something in me. It wasn't just words. It was erasing me from our story." The table froze. A fork hovered midair from Aunt Rosa. Uncle Miguel shook his head slowly, murmuring, "Not now, Mara. This is family time." Lena's fork clattered against her plate, her face flushing beneath the edged lamplight. "Mara, please. We're here to eat, to be together. Why drag up the past? It was a mistake. Kids say things. Can't we just move on?" Tension rippled outward, a current under the tablecloth, pulling at Mara's resolve. Her hands trembled slightly, but she held her sister's gaze, the paella cooling untouched between them, a symbol of what bound them, now tainted by the refusal to share the full truth. The room's stillness amplified every breath, every averted eye, the emotional humidity pressing in like fog. Julian shifted beside Mara, his quiet presence a anchor. "No, Lena," he said softly, his voice cutting the silence without raising. "It's not dragging. It's finally saying it. I saw it too, how you shut Mara out, made her the outsider. I stayed quiet because I was scared. But she's right. We all carry it." Heads shook more firmly now. Cousin Elena whispering to her husband, parents exchanging pained glances. But no one rose to leave. The confession hung there, forcing ears to listen, the shared meal transforming from ritual to reckoning. Lena's defenses cracked. Her eyes glistened, but she nodded once, tightly. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. But saying it here, it changes everything." Mara exhaled, the coil loosening, a quiet liberation unfurling in her chest like the steam dissipating. She hadn't shattered the moment. She'd claimed space within it. The question lingered in the air, unspoken. Could voicing the pain redefine their table, or would it always risk the fracture? The rice grew cold, but for the first time, the silence felt permeable. In the quiet aftermath of the dinner, Mara retreated to process the evening's revelations with Dr. Cross. The camera lingers on Mara's face in the dim glow of her apartment, post-dinner haze still clinging to her skin like unspoken regrets. She's slumped in a worn armchair, eyes heavy with fatigue, the weight of the evening's fractured toasts pressing down. Dr. Cross sits across from her, notebook balanced on her knee, the room a cocoon of muted grays, edged light slicing through half-drawn blinds, casting shadows that mimic the lines etched in Mara's brow. "I can't do it anymore, Simone," Mara says, voice low and frayed, like threadbare cloth. Her hands fidget with the locked journal on the side table, its leather cover scarred from years of hiding. She doesn't open it, not yet, but traces the clasp with a thumb, as if testing the yield of her own resolve. Exhaustion pulls at her words, making them drag, the dinner replaying in flashes. Lena's deflective smile, Julian's quiet nod across the table, the shared meal turning sour in her throat. Dr. Cross leans forward, her expression steady, inviting. "What can't you do?" Mara exhales, a slow release of the night's inertia. "Pretend. Go back to those gatherings where we all smile for the photo album, ignoring the missing pages. Lena's version, her control, her guilt dressed as concern. It's not mine. Not anymore. She pauses, the air thick with the internal churn, the fear of severing ties, the pull of blood like an undertow. But something shifts. Her shoulders square, fatigue hardening into resolve. She reaches for her phone, props it against the journal, and hits record. The lens catches her unflinching gaze. "This is for me first," she says to the camera. Direct, no frills. "And for them, if they listen. I won't tolerate the silence that protects us all at my expense. No more numbing the betrayal with busyness or half apologies. Reconciliation isn't forcing unity. It's respecting the boundaries I set. Lena, you stay at arm's length until you own your part. Julian, we've started something real tonight. An alliance, not obligation." Her voice steadies, the hunter in her emerging, stalking her own truth, claiming territory long ceded. Dr. Cross nods, a subtle affirmation. "And after this, you tell them?" Mara stops the recording, sets the phone down beside the journal. She doesn't unlock it, but the gesture feels like a key turning inward. "Yes, no more hiding my story. It's mine to protect, to share on my terms." The question lingers unspoken between them. Can she dismantle their shared illusion of family without shattering the fragile threads that remain? The room holds its breath, the choice crystallizing in the stillness. Truth over facade, boundaries as the new sacred. Finally, in the solitude of her hotel room the next day, Mara performed a quiet ritual to seal her path forward. The dim light of the bedside lamp cast long shadows across Mara's hotel room, the kind that clung to the edges of furniture like unspoken regrets. Enough. She set the album aside and reached for her journal, the locked one that had been her solitary confessor. Unlatching it felt like cracking open a ribcage, vulnerable, necessary. Her pen hovered, then scratched across the page in quick, honest strokes. "Lena's shadow lingers, but I won't chase it anymore. Boundaries aren't walls, they're breath." A nod to Julian flickered in her mind, the quiet brother who'd watched without intervening, his own isolation a mirror to hers. She tore a slip from the back, scribbled a simple line. "We start small. Coffee next visit." Folded it, slipped it into an envelope addressed to him. No grand gestures, just a thread extended. The key turned in the journal's lock with a metallic click, sealing her words away. Relief washed in, warm and tentative, easing the knot in her chest. She'd said goodbye to the old patterns, the performative unity, the swallowed truths, without fanfare. But the door? It stayed cracked, just wide enough for cautious light. How much space was right for healing without inviting the storm back in? Mara exhaled, stacking the album atop the locked journal, and switched off the lamp. The room fell still, but for the first time, it didn't feel like drowning.